Don't take it so personally. Your kids just don't have the same presence as your sisters. It's not a big deal. My mother's words hung in the air between us, sharp as glass despite her casual tone. I gripped my phone tighter, watching my children through the sliding glass door as they played in my backyard in Millbrook. 10-year-old son was teaching his little sister how to do a cartwheel, his patience evident even from a distance. My chest tightened. What exactly did my mother mean by presence? Mom, this is the fourth family event where her kids got the spotlight, while mine were literally told to hand out programs and collect coats. It's Grandma's 80th birthday celebration, not a Broadway audition. My mother sighed, that familiar sound that always preceded a lecture. Honestly, this is why your sister handles these things. She understands how to create a memorable event. Her kids are natural performers. Her son's singing and her daughter's dance recital will be the highlight for your grandmother. Your children are just different, more reserved. We work with what we have. I watched as my son successfully coached his sister through a wobbly but completed cartwheel. The pride on both their faces made something fierce rise up in me. My children are talented and confident in their own ways. He writes beautiful poems that Grandma loves, and her piano playing is advanced for her age. They just never get the chance to show it. We can't have every child doing something. The program would go on forever. Look, your sisters already printed everything. The kids know their roles. Let's not create drama 3 days before the party. The familiar dismissal. The familiar feeling of being asked to settle for less. Not just for me, but for my children. Fine, I said, not meaning it. I need to go. My daughter needs help with homework. I ended the call and stared at my phone for a long moment, scrolling back through texts from family gatherings past. The evidence was there in black and white, a pattern I'd been dismissing for years. From my sister 6 months ago, don't worry about preparing anything with your kids for Uncle's retirement. My children have a whole skit planned. From Mom, last Christmas, please make sure your kids help serve dessert while your sister's children perform their holiday songs. From Dad, at last year's 4th of July, your children can help Grandpa with the chairs during the talent show portion. The realization hit me with sudden clarity. My children were always the stagehands, never the stars. Not because they couldn't perform, but because they were never given the chance. I thought about the look on my son's face last Christmas when he'd asked if he could read his poem about winter, only to be told by Aunt that there wasn't time. I remembered how my daughter had practiced Für Elise for weeks, hoping to play it at Uncle's party, only to be assigned to coat check duty instead. Mom, is everything okay? My son was standing at the door, concern on his face. I forced a smile. Everything's fine, honey. How's the cartwheel lesson going? Good. She's getting better. She just needs more practice. He hesitated. Was that Grandma on the phone? About Great-Grandma's party? I nodded, wondering how much he had overheard. Are we doing coat check again? He asked, his voice carefully neutral in that way children adopt when they're trying to hide disappointment. My heart broke a little. He already knew. He expected it. Actually, I said, making a decision on the spot, I'm not sure what we're doing yet, but I think it's time for things to change a bit. The next day, I called my sister directly. She was 4 years older, always the golden child who excelled at everything from academics to social graces. After college, she'd married a successful real estate developer, and they'd settled in a sprawling house in Oak Ridge, just 20 minutes from our hometown of Millbrook. Her life seemed picture perfect from the outside. 2 talented children, a thriving interior design business, and the unwavering approval of our parents. I'd spent my life in her shadow, even after building my own modest success as an architectural project manager. My husband and I had a comfortable life, and I was proud of our achievements. But within the family dynamic, I was still seen as the less capable sister, and now, apparently, the mother of less capable children. Hey, I was just about to call you, my sister answered brightly. Mom said you were asking about the program for Grandma's birthday. I've got it all figured out. That's actually why I'm calling, I said, keeping my voice level. I think both our kids should have a chance to participate. My son has a beautiful poem he wrote about Grandma, and my daughter's been practicing a piano piece. Oh, my sister interrupted with a light laugh. We've already got everything planned. My son's singing that Frank Sinatra song Grandma loves, and my daughter's doing a dance to Somewhere Over the Rainbow. It's going to be so special. Your kids can help with the behind-the-scenes stuff. It's just as important. They've been helping behind the scenes at every family event for the past 3 years. Don't you think it's time they got a chance to participate too? There was a pause. Are you saying my children shouldn't perform? Her voice had taken on a defensive edge. Not at all. I'm saying there should be room for all the grandchildren to contribute in meaningful ways. Look, I know your kids are shy. We're just playing to everyone's strengths here. My children love performing, and honestly, they're good at it. We want Grandma's birthday to be special. And you don't think my children could make it special? I asked, feeling heat rise to my face. My sister sighed. That's not what I said. I just think we should stick with what works. The program is already finalized. Mom and Dad approved it yesterday. Of course they had. Fine, I said for the second time in 2 days, not meaning it any more than I had before. Just thought I'd ask. You know what? My sister added, her voice softening with what sounded like pity. Maybe at Christmas we can find something small for your kids to do, if they want to. If they want to. If they want to, as if the problem was their reluctance rather than the family's exclusion. Sure, I said. Sounds great. After hanging up, I sat at my kitchen table, stewing in frustration. The condescension in my sister's voice replayed in my head, the assumption that my children weren't as talented, as worthy of attention. The casual way she dismissed their abilities without ever having given them a chance. My phone buzzed with a text from my mother. Your sister said you called her about the program. Please don't make this difficult. Everything's already arranged. I didn't respond. Instead, I called my best friend, who had known my family for 20 years and understood the dynamics all too well. Your sister's still the family princess, huh? She said after I recounted the conversations. Apparently, and now her kids are the royal heirs, I replied. I'm so tired of it, the kids are starting to notice. My son asked me if we were on coat check duty again. Ouch. Yeah, and the worst part is, my kids are talented. They're just never given the opportunity to show it because my sister's kids always take center stage. So what are you going to do about it? My friend asked. What can I do? The program is finalized. Mom and Dad have approved it. Since when do you give up so easily? The person I know would find a way to stand up for her kids. She was right. I'd spent too long accepting the family hierarchy, too long allowing my children to be sidelined. It was time to change the script. You know what? You're right. I'm done playing by their rules. That evening, I called a family meeting with my husband and children. We sat around our dining room table, and I took a deep breath before speaking. I want to talk about great-grandma's birthday party this weekend, I began. I know, my son said, slouching in his chair. Coat check duty. My husband raised an eyebrow at me. We'd never explicitly discussed the pattern of favoritism with the kids, but clearly they'd noticed. Actually, I said, I've been thinking, would you two like to perform at the party? Son, you could read your poem about Grandma, and daughter, you could play your piano piece. Their faces lit up instantly, then just as quickly fell. But what about our cousins? My daughter asked. They always do the performances. There's room for everyone to participate, I said firmly. Your cousins are performing, but that doesn't mean you can't too. Does Aunt know? My son asked warily. I hesitated. Not yet, but this is Grandma's birthday, and I know she'd love to hear your poem and your sister's music. So here's what I'm thinking. I laid out my plan. We wouldn't ask for permission. We wouldn't fight for a spot on the official program. Instead, we'd create our own moment, one that couldn't be denied without making the adults look petty in front of the entire extended family. My husband looked concerned. Are you sure this is the right approach? It sounds a bit confrontational. I've tried the polite approach for years, I replied. It hasn't worked. I'm not going to let our children keep believing they're somehow less worthy of attention than their cousins. He nodded slowly. You're right. I just hope it doesn't cause a scene. If it does, I said, it won't be because of us. The day of Great-Grandma's 80th birthday arrived with perfect early autumn weather. The celebration was being held at my parents' house in Millbrook, a colonial-style home with a large backyard that had been decorated with white tents, flowers, and twinkling lights. We arrived early, as requested by my sister, who had appointed herself event coordinator. She greeted us at the door, clipboard in hand, looking immaculate in a blue dress that probably cost more than my monthly car payment. "You're here. Perfect. Kids, I need your help setting up the gift table and then handing out these programs." She thrust a stack of elegant cream-colored programs into my son's hands without waiting for a response. I took the programs from him gently. "Actually, the kids are going to greet guests with their father for now. I'll help with the gift table." My sister's smile faltered slightly. "But I've already assigned." "Plans change," I said pleasantly. "Where do you want the gifts set up?" She stared at me for a moment, then pointed toward a table near the back of the living room. "There. Make sure everything looks organized." As I arranged the gift table, I glanced through one of the programs. Sure enough, the schedule listed musical performance by nephew and dance recital by niece as the main entertainment, followed by cake and a toast. No mention of my children whatsoever. The house gradually filled with relatives and family friends. Great-grandma held court in her favorite armchair, beaming as people came to wish her happy birthday. My children stayed close to their father, occasionally casting uncertain glances my way. I gave them reassuring smiles each time. When most of the guests had arrived, my sister clinked a spoon against her glass to call for attention. "Thank you all for coming to celebrate our dear grandma's 80th birthday," she announced. "We have a wonderful program planned. If everyone could make their way to the backyard tent, we'll begin shortly." As people moved toward the backyard, I caught my children's eyes and nodded. It was time. In the tent, chairs had been arranged in rows facing a small cleared area that served as a stage. My sister directed Great-Grandma to a decorated chair in the front row, then took her place at the edge of the stage area. "Welcome, everyone. We're so happy you could join us to celebrate this special milestone for our beloved grandmother," my sister began. "We have some wonderful performances prepared in Grandma's honor." She called her son forward first. At 12, he was tall for his age and moved with the confidence of someone who knew he was expected to succeed. He sang My Way with an impressive voice for a boy his age, complete with practiced gestures and facial expressions. The audience applauded enthusiastically when he finished, with my parents clapping the loudest. Next came my 9-year-old niece, who performed a dance routine that she'd clearly been taking lessons for. She was graceful and poised, and again received hearty applause. After her performance, my sister stepped forward again. "And now, we'll move on to cake and—" "Excuse me," I said, standing up from my seat in the second row. "Before we move to cake, there are 2 more grandchildren who would like to honor Grandma." A hush fell over the gathering. My sister's smile froze on her face. From the corner of my eye, I saw my mother straighten in her chair, her expression alarmed. "I'm sorry," my sister said with a tight laugh, "but we need to keep to the schedule. I'm sure we can spare a few more minutes to let all of Grandma's grandchildren participate," I interrupted, my voice carrying clearly through the tent. "Isn't that right, Grandma?" All eyes turned to Great-Grandma, who looked momentarily confused but then nodded. "Of course. I'd love to see what your children have prepared." My sister had no choice but to step aside. The look she gave me could have frozen lava, but I kept my expression pleasant as I motioned for my son to come forward. He approached nervously, a folded paper in his hand. He glanced at me once more for reassurance, and I nodded encouragingly. "I, wrote a poem for you, Grandma," he said, his voice gaining strength with each word. "It's called 80 Years of Wisdom." As my son read his poem, a beautiful, thoughtful piece that captured memories of fishing trips and cookie baking sessions with his grandmother, I watched Great-Grandma's face. Tears welled in her eyes, and she leaned forward in her chair, completely captivated. When he finished, there was a moment of silence before the applause began, tentative at first, then growing stronger. Great-Grandma opened her arms, and my son went to her for a hug. "That was beautiful, my boy," I heard her say. "Simply beautiful." Next, my daughter took her place at the keyboard that had been set up for the background music. Her hands trembled slightly as she positioned them, but once she began to play Für Elises, her nervousness vanished. Her small fingers moved confidently over the keys, bringing Beethoven's melody to life. She'd practiced for hours, and it showed in the smoothness of her performance. When she finished, the applause was immediate and genuine. Great-grandma was openly crying now, waving my daughter over for another hug. "I had no idea you could play like that," she exclaimed. "What a wonderful surprise." I caught my sister's eye across the tent. Her face was a mask of barely contained fury. Beside her, our mother looked equally displeased, while our father seemed uncomfortable but not angry. Around them, however, aunts, uncles, and family friends were smiling and commenting on how lovely it was to see all 4 grandchildren perform. My sister quickly regained control of the event, ushering everyone toward the cake table. As the crowd dispersed, she made a beeline for me. "What was that?" she hissed. "You completely hijacked the program." "I gave my children a chance to participate," I replied calmly. "Something you and Mom refused to allow when I asked nicely. You made me look bad in front of everyone. That wasn't my intention. My intention was to let my children show their talents instead of being relegated to coat check duty again." "They were fine with helping out before you put this idea in their heads," she snapped. "Were they? Or did you just never bother to ask them how they felt?" My mother appeared at my sister's side, her lips pressed into a thin line. "That was completely inappropriate. You should have respected the program your sister worked so hard to arrange." "Like you've respected my children's abilities all these years?" I countered. "They've been treated like second-class grandchildren at every family event, and I'm done letting it happen." "That's ridiculous," my mother scoffed. "You're being overly sensitive as usual." "Am I?" I pulled out my phone and opened my text history. Should we go through all the messages where my kids were assigned to serve food or collect coats while my sister's kids got to perform? Or how about the times my children asked to participate and were told there wasn't room in the program? My mother's face flushed. "This isn't the time or place." "It never is," I cut in. "That's the problem." My sister folded her arms. "So what now? You've made your point by disrupting Grandma's birthday. Are you happy?" I looked past them to where my children stood with their great-grandmother, both beaming as she praised their performances. Nearby, my niece and nephew hovered, looking uncertain. "This isn't about making a point or being happy," I said. "It's about fairness. And yes, seeing my children proud of themselves instead of feeling invisible in their own family does make me happy." "You're being dramatic," my sister said dismissively. "No one was making them feel invisible." "Maybe you should ask them how they felt instead of deciding for them," I suggested. "And while you're at it, maybe consider that family events should include the whole family, not just the parts you think are worthy of the spotlight." My father joined our tense circle, placing a hand on my mother's arm. "Let's not do this now," he said quietly. "It's Mom's birthday." "You're right," I agreed. "We should be celebrating, not arguing." I turned to walk away, but my mother caught my arm. "This isn't over," she warned. "You've embarrassed your sister and disrupted the whole event." I gently removed her hand from my arm. "No, Mom. I finally stood up for my children after years of watching them be sidelined. If that embarrasses you, then maybe you should examine why." The rest of the party passed in a fog of strained politeness. My sister avoided me entirely, keeping her children close, as if I might somehow contaminate them with my rebellion. My mother made a show of praising my niece and nephew while offering only perfunctory compliments to my children. But I noticed other relatives making a point of telling my son and daughter how much they'd enjoyed their performances. Most important was great-grandma, who called my children to sit with her several times during the afternoon, asking my son about his poetry and my daughter about her piano lessons. The joy on their faces was worth whatever family drama I'd unleashed. As we prepared to leave, great-grandma took my hand. "Thank you for that lovely surprise," she said. "I had no idea the children were so talented." "They've always been talented," I replied. "They just haven't always had the chance to show it." She patted my hand, her eyes sharp despite her years. "I understand more than you think, dear, your mother and sister. They've always had their way of doing things. Sometimes it takes someone willing to break the rules to change things." I hugged her, feeling a lump in my throat. "I love you, Grandma." "I love you too. And bring those talented children to visit me soon. I want to hear more of his poems and her music. On the drive home, the car was unusually quiet until my son spoke up from the back seat. "Are you in trouble, Mom?" Aunt looked really mad. I exchanged a glance with my husband before answering. "I'm not in trouble. Aunt and Grandma are upset because things didn't go exactly as they planned. But that's okay. Sometimes plans need to change." "Great-Grandma liked our performances," my daughter said, a note of wonder in her voice. "She loved them," I corrected, "because you both did wonderfully." "Will we get to perform at Christmas too?" My son asked cautiously. My husband answered before I could. "If you want to, then yes, you absolutely will." "What if Aunt says no again?" my daughter asked. "Then we'll figure something out," I promised. "But from now on, you two will have the same opportunities as your cousins. No more coat check duty unless that's what you want to do." That evening, my phone buzzed repeatedly with texts from my mother and sister, ranging from guilt-tripping to outright accusations. I read them all, but responded to none. There would be time for that conversation later, when emotions weren't running so high. Instead, I sent a single text to the family group chat, which included my parents, sister, and her husband. "Thank you all for a lovely celebration for Great-Grandma. Moving forward, I want to make sure all 4 grandchildren have equal opportunities to participate in family events in ways that showcase their individual talents. I'm happy to discuss how we can make this work for everyone." I didn't expect an immediate positive response, and I didn't get one. My mother replied with a curt, "We'll discuss this later." My sister didn't respond at all. But as I tucked my daughter into bed that night, she wrapped her arms around my neck and whispered, "Today was the best day ever, Mom. Everyone was looking at me when I played, not just helping." And that was all the confirmation I needed that I'd done the right thing. 3 days later, my father called. This was unusual. Typically, my mother was the family communicator. "Your mother's still upset," he said without preamble. "I figured," I replied. "But I wanted to tell you. I think you made a good point. At the party, I mean." His voice was hesitant, as if he was venturing into unfamiliar territory. "I never realized we were always putting your sister's kids front and center. It just seemed natural, I guess." "Because that's how it's always been," I said. "My sister at the center, me on the sidelines." There was a long pause. "Maybe you're right about that too," he finally admitted. "I've been thinking about it a lot since the party, looking back at Christmas and Thanksgiving and all those other gatherings. And I think we owe you and your kids an apology." Yet the words seemed to cost him effort. "We should have been more fair." It wasn't a complete acknowledgement of the years of favoritism, but it was more than I'd expected. "Thank you, Dad. That means a lot." "Your mother's not there yet," he warned. "And your sister, well, you know her." "I do," I agreed. "But this isn't about them being happy with me. It's about my children being treated fairly." "I understand that now," he said. "And I'll talk to your mother. Just give her some time." After we hung up, I sat holding my phone, feeling a strange mix of vindication and sadness. The family dynamic I'd grown up with was shifting, and while that was necessary, it wasn't entirely painless. My phone buzzed with a text from my friend. "Fallout from the birthday rebellion?" I smiled and wrote back, "Some." Dad just called to sort of apologize. Mom and my sister still fuming. "Worth it?" she asked. I thought of my children's faces as they performed, of their great-grandmother's genuine delight, of the pride they'd carried home with them. "Absolutely," I replied. "Some battles need to be fought, even if they're uncomfortable." "That's my girl," she texted back, standing up for what matters. Later that evening, as my husband and I were watching TV, my son came downstairs in his pajamas, looking thoughtful. "Can't sleep?" I asked, patting the couch beside me. He sat down, fidgeting with the hem of his shirt. "I was thinking about Great-Grandma's party." "What about it?" "You stood up for us," he said simply, "even though it made Aunt and Grandma mad." "Of course I did. You're my children. I'll always stand up for you." He considered this. "My cousin texted me today. He said his mom was really upset, but he thought my poem was cool. He didn't know I wrote poetry." "What did you tell him?" "I sent him some of my other poems. He liked them." My son looked up at me. He said maybe we could do something together at Christmas. Like both of us. My heart lightened. That sounds like a great idea. So, We're still going to Grandma and Grandpa's for Christmas? Even though they're mad? They won't be mad forever, I assured him. And yes, we'll still go. We're family, even when we disagree. He nodded, seemingly satisfied. Good, because I'm working on a Christmas poem, and I think it's going to be really good. After he went back to bed, my husband squeezed my hand. You know, when you first told me your plan, I thought it might backfire spectacularly. It still might, I said. Mom and my sister have long memories for perceived slights. But you'd do it again. It wasn't a question, but I answered anyway. In a heartbeat.